Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football with myself, Scott Morganroth, and Ryan Skolrud on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. Here we are, week 4, and Ryan, let's talk about your notes for tonight. We've got Patrick.
Alrighty, well, really the first thing I wanted to get to is one of the players that I wasn't necessarily down on, but I was wondering if he could sustain what he did last year, and that's Patrick Mahomes. And I don't know if you actually got a laugh out of it, Scott. What I put in my notes to you was that Patrick Mahomes is stupid good. I mean, he is phenomenal. Just looking at what he's done so far in the first 3 games. I mean, last year, we talked about in the preseason what he did last year, throwing for 5,000 yards, almost 5,100 yards through 50 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And this year, I mean, he has put up 378, 443, and 374 yards in 3 games. He is on pace. I mean, I understand it's only 3 games so far, but he's on pace for 6,300 pass yards and 53 touchdowns. Now, the thing that about Patrick Mahomes that a lot of guys like me were hesitant about, it wasn't that he wasn't good or wasn't going to continue to be good. It's just, could he sustain that type of numbers? And if you look at, the guys who have done that before, we're talking about, future Hall of Famers in Tom Brady, who threw for 5,050 when he had Randy Moss. And then the next year was kind of an anomaly, because the next year, first game of the season, Tom Brady, goes out with an ACL injury. But if you look at all the other years that Tom Brady's had really good passing years, he hasn't been anywhere close. I think that was the only year he's ever hit 5,000 pass yards. I think he's only had a couple other seasons where he's gotten 40 touchdowns passing. And we're talking about, the guy that everyone says is the GOAT.
Right.
Greatest of all time. Now, if we look at just from a stats perspective at Peyton Manning has had a lot of years of throwing for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. And you look at the 1 year, 2013, where he throws for over 5,000 yards, throws for, 50, 52 touchdowns or whatever it was.
Right.
Outstanding year. The next year he had a very good year again. Threw for around 5,000 yards and threw for about 40 to, I want to say it was like 40 TDs, somewhere in there.
Right.
Awesome year. And so to expect a little bit of regression out of Patrick Mahomes is completely normal. And I think that Kansas City fans in general, and even fantasy football and NFL fans in general, I think to say that he wasn't going to regress at all, that he is just that good and that's what he's going to be every year, is naive. And the fact that he's put up these numbers is, yes, it's a testament to him, but it's also a testament to the coaches and the scheme and the players and the team that they've put together for him to be able to perform like this. There's always the argument in fantasy, is it worth taking a quarterback in the first round? I still say no, even if it's Patrick Mahomes, unless you have a league that emphasizes the quarterback, like a 2-quarterback league or a superflex league.
Right.
In single quarterback leagues, Patrick Mahomes, I still think, is a 2nd or 3rd round pick. And simply because, again, we're looking about a position. It's one position that, in most leagues, it's only 4 points for a passing touchdown instead of 6. If it's 6 points, that pushes up the passing touchdowns a little bit. So you maybe move him at the end of the first round. But I just wanted to really just talk about Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback position in general. He is stupid good. That's really the only way to put it. It's just, he is a phenomenal talent that he is going to continue to put up numbers because of, again, the talent they've put around him. The players that fit into Andy Reid's scheme. And you look at the wide receivers, you've got Tyreek Hill. And if anything happens to Tyreek Hill, you have you have Sammy Watkins, who at one point was, a top 10 wide receiver in Buffalo with Tyrod Taylor throwing him the ball.
Right.
Now, he's had issues with injuries and staying healthy, and if he can stay healthy, he can put up close to those, top 10 wide receiver type numbers again.
Right.
He has the issue with his hamstrings and his legs and staying healthy. But we saw, week one, Sammy Watkins goes for, 190-some yards and 3 touchdowns against Jacksonville. The next week, it's Demarcus Robinson going for, 176 yards, 6 catches, and 2 touchdowns. And then in Baltimore, it's Mecole Hardman going for, 140 yards and a touchdown or 2. So, the talent that they have around Patrick Mahomes. Oh, and we're forgetting about a tight end who's basically been quote-unquote non-existent in this offense, but is still a top 10 tight end in fantasy.
Right.
Without getting his usual production. So, this is a team that they have set up so beautifully for Patrick Mahomes. And he's a phenomenal arm talent. The guy can absolutely bomb the ball. I saw YouTube videos of him when he was in college, right before the draft, throwing 70-yard passes from his knees. So, really, that's all I really had to say. Just he's a phenomenal talent, and anyone who drafted him, if you reached early and drafted him in the first and second round, it's paying off for you. That was a gamble I wasn't willing to take. I'm willing to say that he might have been, as of right now, looks like he was worth that first-round pick. Still doesn't mean I was going to take him. So, and that's kind of my thoughts on Patrick Mahomes and just the phenomenal year that he is already having.
All right, let me give you my take on Patrick Mahomes. Last year when I did the fantasy football thing in my family, okay, I had him and Aaron Rodgers. Boy, a tough problem to have. And I found myself going with...
This year it's not.
No, I know, I'm with you there. I found myself going with Mahomes a lot more than Rodgers. Everybody in the family I knew I had Rodgers, but look where it got me. I never got past the first round. Either it was tough deciding between the two or whatever the case is. Of course, me last year not having Le'Veon Bell didn't help matters. Let's break down the dynamics of the Patrick Mahomes thing even more, though. We were at that Jacksonville game when Sammy Watkins lit up those numbers, and I was sold on him, and I added him, and unfortunately it hasn't paid any dividends at all for me. But maybe was that a knee-jerk reaction when you talk about real football versus fantasy football? Go figure. So with that said about Mahomes, how does he fare in Detroit against the Detroit Lions?
Oh, this is going to be a bloodbath.
Bloodbath? Really?
And here's why. Detroit's played pretty well over these first few games. They came out with a tie against the Arizona Cardinals, who I think is an awful team, to be completely honest. I think they're terrible.
Right.
I think that this experiment that they're trying again with the spread offense in the pros, it just, with the amount of talent in professional football at the cornerback position, and the fact that guys actually have the ability in the pros to play one-on-one defense so that you can have linebackers blitzing and shooting the gaps like crazy. You can rush 5 and 6 because your defensive backs can play one-on-one.
Right.
That's not necessarily the case in college football. And so you can run a spread system and just figure out who the weak spot is and go that direction over and over and over again. You don't have those weak spots in the NFL. And so the Airs, they should have won that game, and they let the Cardinals back into it.
Yeah,
in order to tie it up, and then managed to squeak out a tie when the Cardinals couldn't convert, getting down to like the 10-yard line in overtime.
I painfully listened to that ending, driving back from Jacksonville down to South Florida on I-95, and I could not believe what I was listening to. Thankfully, I wasn't watching that collapse. But I got to give the Lions credit, though. They did beat 2 good football teams with the Chargers and the Eagles the following week. So how long the Lions will remain undefeated will be for another day. But I'll be curious to see how they respond to the challenge of Patrick Mahomes over the weekend. So
I think in terms of fantasy production for the Lions, it could be a good day because I think they'll be playing catch up and have to pass the ball all over the field in order to keep up. Playing inside with the speed of the Chiefs wide receivers and their running backs, whether LaShawn McCoy is healthy or not, having Darwin Thompson and Darrell Williams, who are both very fast in their own right and solid running backs, not only running the ball but catch the ball in the backfield. And then you have McCole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, and Sammy Watkins. This is not an indictment on the Lions. This is just how good the Chiefs are.
Right.
And playing indoors, so no wind affecting them.
Right.
Indoors on a fast track like what the Lions have. I don't see the Lions keeping up.
No, you could be right. Again, you're talking Matt Stafford on the other end, and the Lions are certainly not a team that, although they've scored some points, but the only question I have in that football game, Ryan, will be whether or not the defense of the Chiefs holds up, because I know that's always been a question mark, which led to some of the coaching changes during the offseason for sure. So it'll definitely be an interesting matchup, and you're right, in a very climate-controlled facility. At least you don't have any weather conditions affecting the outcome. I can't imagine how hard the air conditioning is going to blow in Ford Field. But anyways, let's go on to some other points. I like the word "stupid" good though. I have to remember that one. So now let's go on to some new starters. We'll start off with Daniel Jones. We had a very nice contest against the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah, I like Daniel Jones. I was one of the advocates for Daniel Jones. Well, I still couldn't. I'll be honest. I couldn't believe that the Giants took him as high as the 6th pick. He was still a guy that I think is going to be a solid starter in the NFL. He is a smart guy. Graduated from Duke. You look at his numbers back when he was at Duke. His completion percentage wasn't all that great. But again, if watching the tape and some of the teams that he had to go up against, facing teams like Clemson where he's just absolutely getting pummeled, and getting passes out to his receivers and only completing 53%, 52% because none of his receivers can catch the ball.
Right.
I mean, it was awful. But his throws for the most part were on the money. I think he's earned his nickname Danny Dimes, no matter how much people are already getting sick of it. I like what he has done so far. The one major concern, obviously, is the fumbles. In a little bit of playing time, garbage time with Dallas in Game 1, and then in the start against Tampa Bay, he has already lost 3 fumbles. And that's rookie nerves, learning a new center, exchange with new running backs. Now they've lost Saquon Barkley for a while.
Right.
I still think that Daniel Jones is going to be a solid quarterback. They're going to have to lean on him. They've got this next week against Washington. I believe it's at home against the Washington Redskins. The Redskins' defense is awful. I mean, Taylor Gabriel scorched them for 3 touchdowns on Monday Night Football. And so I think that Daniel Jones should put up some decent numbers. He has the ability to run the ball. I think that there are going to be games where Daniel Jones leads the Giants in rushing, because I don't believe that much in Wayne Gallman. Gallman's just a guy. I know a lot of people went to pick him up because they lost Saquon Barkley or because he's going to be the starter. And he'll put up some okay games, but I'm not that big of a believer in Gallman. I think that Daniel Jones, really everything's going to sit on him. And again, he's a rookie. He's going to take his lumps. He's going to throw the interceptions. He's going to lose more fumbles. But I still think that he, as a fantasy starter, is still going to put up decent enough numbers. This week, I think I may actually have him as a top 12 quarterback, simply because the matchup is very nice, even with it being a divisional rival in Washington. I think that he's going to put up decent numbers. I can see him putting up